What do you think are your biggest pet peeves when it comes to supplements?
I think you touched upon them a little bit. I think this level of marketing that really just obfuscates exactly what's going on, or this overhyping of what they can do. And the other part is that believing that a supplement is going to cure everything that ails you. Those are big ones, right? Again, you need to be rational in your approach, systematic, curious, and I think you need just to follow the evidence and not be and not looking at all the shiny things up here, looking for a quick fix.
Welcome to HERology, the new podcast from the Mount Sinai Health System, advancing women's health through cutting-edge science and compassionate care. Our show is brought to you by the Carolyn Rowan Center for Women's Health and Wellness here at Mount Sinai. I'm your co-host, Dr. Anna Barbieri. Today, we're unpacking the essential supplements for women's health during midlife. What are the must-have supplements and what supplements are just empty promises? We're cutting through the menowashing to find out what actually works. To walk us through, I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Joanne Stone, who leads the Department of OBGYN as chair here at Mount Sinai, and Dr. Francesco Callipari, the medical director of the Rowan Women's Health Center and an expert in women's integrative health. Welcome to the show. Supplements, that's the topic for today, and it's a giant one, right? I mean, I hear about supplements every day. I get asked about supplements. I walk down that CVS aisle. I'm intimidated by supplements sometimes. So it really comes up a lot, and I think traditionally in medicine, on the medical school side and in residency, we really don't know so much about supplements. We're never really exposed to that information. And I think that creates kind of this situation where we don't really know how to counsel patients or even how to think about supplements. But today, we're going to talk about all of that. I'm so happy to be joined by my colleagues, Dr. Joanne Stone, Dr. Francesco Callipari. You are our expert guest on this. Tell us a little bit how you came to know more about this topic, because that's kind of unusual, right? Like most doctors actually don't know so much and think that supplements are sort of useless most of the time.
Right. So that's a very good point. I find the same thing myself with all my colleagues. So I guess the inspiration was you, actually, because you did complete this amazing fellowship in integrative care and integrative medicine. And actually, I'm following in your footsteps. I'm in my second year of the Andrew Weil School for Integrative Medicine. And lots and lots of the lectures that we have do integrate and speak about supplements, micronutrients, botanicals, as they pertain to different elements of traditional and conventional medicine. And I think we're going to be focusing on midlife and women's care and perimenopause and menopause, and they are really, really germane to that aspect of women's life's journey.
Well, thank you for that. And for our audience, Francesco and I go way back.
Yes.
You were actually one of my mentors in residency.
Thank you.
I may have been a little bit afraid of you back then, but no longer. But it's great to work with you. And I think, when it comes to supplements, vitamins, minerals, certainly the impression I had is that we don't know what we don't know, and it behooves us to know more about this topic that is so important for our patient. It comes up a lot. And I'm sure with Joanne, you, given your maternal fetal medicine and obstetrical work, you see it all the time. All those questions about what can I use before I'm pregnant, what can I use when I'm pregnant. How do you find that a lot?
All the time. Patients are always asking, do I need to take DHA? How much folic acid should I take? Can I take magnesium? Is there any benefit? There's so much out there. And people also are like afraid to take things and then afraid not to take things. So it's really good to get the information out there.
Totally. And there's so much information. I mean, supplements are that market is worth billions of dollars. The marketing is very sophisticated. But when you look under the hood, the evidence may or may not be there. So we're here today to really talk about supplements in a practical way, get some practical takeaways, and have a little fun section at the end, too. Let's start. Francesco, tell us what supplements are, because I think that's also a confusing definition for people.
Right. So I think the classification really is that supplements are these bioactive compounds. A lot of them do come from plants or natural elements, and fortunately or unfortunately, they're not as well studied as pharmacologic agents. So they don't fall under the same exact guidelines. And so they're out in the market often with a lot of sort of, let's say, marketing attestments in terms of health benefits. Now, they're not allowed to say that they cure diseases. They're not allowed to say that they treat diseases. Right, that is actually one of the government laws that exists right now, but there's a lot of latitude even within that, and they do sort of make these inferred statements about effectiveness. So that's what supplements are, and that's how they're different sort of than medications or drugs, which are very highly regulated. What the good thing is that right now there's more and more data that's coming out with supplements. There are more and more emerging evidence-based studies between clinical trials and randomized controlled trials and systematic reviews as well. So I think we're in a good place in terms of learning much more and getting more evidence-informed opinions and actually statements and recommendations that we as practitioners can give to the patients. It gives us that much better structural framework for recommending them. We feel a little bit safer.
I think that's a good point. I mean, supplements are not drugs. They don't go through the same approval process that pharmaceutical agents go through. But that does not really mean, right, that we would say, no supplement is worthwhile. And I think that's kind of can be that extreme opinion that's easy to give, but that doesn't serve us well as individuals and certainly doesn't serve our patients well. What about are supplements, so do they all come from plants, or is there a difference between what's a vitamin, mineral, botanical? Like it's a wild world out there.
No, that's very well stated. It is a wild world, and I mean we're the Western cowboys trying to wrangle it in and find some kind of way to bring some order.
Yes.
Some systematic order and some logic to it, right? Logic and a rational,
yes.
a rational approach, right?
Yes.
So let's do a little bit of organizational stuff. So there are certain things like minerals, right? So there's magnesium, which is one of the most common minerals found in the body. Magnesium is involved in hundreds and hundreds of enzymatic reactions, both at the intracellular level and even extracellular level. That's involved
inside the cell and outside the cell.
That's right, inside the cell and out. Thank you. That's right. There are things like vitamins. Vitamin D is a great example, which is both a vitamin and a prohormone, actually.
I know. I'm the hormone girl, so I always say that vitamin D is a hormone.
Yes. So vitamin D really sort of straddles both worlds of being a vitamin and being a prohormone. And then there's things like botanicals, and a great example in our world, in our space, is black cohosh. Which comes from different plants and has some effects actually in terms of menopausal management of hot flashes, vasomotor symptoms. So those are just sort of three examples from the three different worlds, I think.
Yeah, so I think, supplements would be the umbrella term, and then minerals, vitamins, and botanicals, right?
Yeah.
I think it's important to distinguish that. I also sometimes, when I think of them, talk about things that are meant to replace certain deficiencies. Right. So often we'll talk about things like iron and vitamin D here, and then things that really have pharmacologic actions. So something that you may be taking for hot flashes would be in that category. And pregnancy is a whole other thing. I mean, I think everybody's used to taking prenatal vitamins and all the stuff that's in there, which is, I think, mostly vitamins and minerals, botanicals.
Yeah, mainly, but there are additional supplements in there as well. So, I mean, folic acid is one of the most important components of a prenatal vitamin. We know, and it's interesting because there really is some actual real data, right? So we know from proven randomized controlled trials that folic acid is super important in terms of prevention of neural tube defects. So the minimum amount is, 400 micrograms a day. Many prenatal vitamins have a little bit more than that, but that's just a baseline. So you need to talk to your doctor. If you have a history of having had a prior pregnancy where there was a neural tube defect, that's commonly known as spina bifida or anencephaly, or you have diabetes, you have to take more. So the recommendation in those circumstances is for milligrams. So it really, really depends, but folic acid is super important. And even just prenatal vitamins is important. Studies have shown that people who take 3 prenatal vitamins, hopefully at least 1 month, but like preferably 3 months before conceiving, have a lower incidence of having a baby with a fetal malformation. So super, super important.
Do you think that's because we just can't get enough of these substances from diet? I would ask both of you that. Like, we often talk to patients about eating healthy, but still people, we see it in the labs, right? Lots of people are deficient in certain very basic micronutrients. So what do you think about this statement, get whatever you can from your diet?
So that's a great concept if it were actually doable, right? So you have to look at historical data and what's happened with our farming systems and the use of pesticides, and just the big changes that have occurred. Even the use of fertilizers has changed. Over the last 100 years, the plants themselves are not as nutritious. You just don't get the same phosphate levels at the root level, just to be very technical. There's a lot of gene modification that has occurred because there were pressures to generate enough food for the growing population of the earth. So yes, there's a reason for it, but the downstream effect is now that food's not as nutritious, and it does lack some of these critical micronutrients, and that's where the supplements come in, especially, again, a judicious use of supplements, a judicious use of micronutrients, and the vitamins as well. So, yeah, it has to do with farming and even some of the pesticides, and we were talking about this before the show about endocrine disruptors, things that actually change the way some of the hormones work in your body. And this would be a good case usage of adding in supplements, again, where it's appropriate.
Yeah. And I feel like lifestyle too, right? Like, we're all told to avoid the sun so we don't get
That's right.
wrinkles. I wish I knew that like 30, 40 years ago.
I didn't do that either.
Yeah. So many people are vitamin D deficient, right? Because they're like avoiding sunlight. So, it's our lifestyle too.
We should do a whole other podcast just on that, because I
yes.
find so much true vitamin D deficiency, and pretty much everyone. And, we're here in New York, and it's been like the longest winter ever, so I get that too. But pretty much everyone is vitamin D insufficient. And I think you're right. We do need sunscreen, prevent skin cancer, but we just, by using that, we're also bypassing the way humans make vitamin D. It's very tough to find food with enough vitamin D, and that's why some food is, of course, has added vitamin D to it, but we really make it through sun. So that is where I wish I could say everybody go to the beach for 20 minutes a day, sign me up, I'm there too, but that's where vitamin D supplements maybe
in a perfect world, what the recommendation is to be out between like 9 and 10:30 in the morning for about 20 minutes.
We're on meeting 6 by then.
Of course. In a perfect world, that's where you should be, where the sunlight hits you.
In a room like this.
We're a HERology podcast.
But it's really the least obnoxious rays of sun that you're going to get, and it's not bad. And speaking of vitamin D, that's a great example of an important supplement to start thinking about. That's a good one where you can actually do a blood level. You can do something called the 25 vitamin D deficiency level. You've got some certain numbers that you have to hit. The deficiency level is quantified as less than 30 nanograms per mil, but the optimal range is between 40 and 60, because that's where the best action is for the vitamin. And as you know, all of you know, it's got an important impact on bone, even on muscle development, as I said, it's a big pro-hormone. It's important for calcium metabolism, the way that we ingest calcium, the way that calcium gets transported from the intestines to the bloodstream, and then, of course, how the calcium is put into our bones.
Totally.
Fracture risk is a thing, right? That is a really important thing as we get older, especially for women.
I have to be better.
You got to think about it.
Yeah, I have to, so I have truth be told, I have a bag in my office, Ziploc bag that has magnesium, vitamin D, calcium.
Right.
Somehow colace, a stool softener, got in there for I don't know why. I think I took the bag because I thought it was giving me trouble. I don't know which is which. So I haven't taken anything because I don't know. I want to take the colace.
So let's talk about that. I think, Francesco, you brought up an important point, right? Like, how does someone know that they need to take supplements, right? Do we test for that? Do we go by symptoms? How do you think of that when you're
Right.
working with patients? And then, given the age that we are, and there's a lot of interest in this thing, let's talk about some supplements specifically for women in midlife, because
Great.
we get asked that all the time.
In fact, it's one of the most common questions that we have when we're doing a menopause consultation or a perimenopause consultation. So starting with vitamin D, even though I said that you should be checking a vitamin D deficiency level, you can go ahead and start people on 1,000 to 2,000 international units or IUs a day. That's a very safe dose.
Yeah, nothing bad is going to happen.
Nothing bad's going to happen. However, if someone is deficient, and then their physician should be looking at much bigger doses, don't do those by yourself. You should be doing that in conjunction with a physician that's going to be managing the numbers and looking at levels. Magnesium. Magnesium is a tough one because most of the magnesium in our bodies is really not in the bloodstream. So looking at a level in the bloodstream is not as helpful for magnesium. However, we do know from population studies that magnesium levels are pretty low. They're pretty low. And let's
Having
dive
to do with that food quality that you
with the
mentioned.
food quality,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So on the money,
Yeah.
right? So in terms of supplementation, also, this is where you have to nuance the kind of magnesium you're going to get. So there's tons of stuff out there which has magnesium oxide or magnesium malate, and of course, my personal favorite, magnesium glycinate. And there's a reason for that. The magnesium glycinate is probably the easiest on your gut, and it doesn't create a lot of intestinal problems like diarrhea or loose stool. And it probably has a lot of effectiveness for a couple of things. Number one, for bone health and muscle health, but also for sleep. And taking 300 to 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate in the evening, right before bedtime, is extremely helpful.
Yeah, some people
And
find it
sleep
very
is a
helpful.
problem, right?
Yeah.
For perimenopause, for lots of reasons.
Oh, I'm living it.
So you're living it. So that magnesium glycinate would probably be my strong recommendation.
Yeah.
And
Is
around
it
that dosing.
anti-inflammatory as well?
It's very much an anti-inflammatory, extremely. A lot of these have that crossover functionality,
I
yes.
think it's a good, I agree with you. I think magnesium glycinate is a good overall magnesium, but if somebody is suffering from constipation, then there are
The
these
magnesium,
magnesium mixes, and the
oxide
old
might be
the old colonoscopy prep was
Right.
actually magnesium citrate that you
That's right,
drank.
remember.
It worked.
I remember
works.
it
Yeah.
from personal experience,
Yeah.
right?
So some things we can test for, right? Vitamin D you mentioned.
right.
Iron levels.
Iron level for sure.
B12 levels.
B12, another
B12
important-
is another
yeah,
one. Like
another important
I
deficiency,
think I
yeah.
find that all the time. We see so many women in midlife who come in with fatigue, hair loss, just lower energy, and often, especially today, like they're bombarded with messages about just get more estrogen, get on estrogen, get on testosterone, and we forget that there are other things that go on in the body other than those things. So I'm also an advocate for actually checking those levels in this population because you can really uncover B12 deficiencies, iron deficiencies,
Right.
and really help people through a very, very simple way, either by recommending a dietary change, and yes, ideally we would get sun and get food, or using supplements in a smart way.
Yeah, and B12 is a very good one because you may have this underlying irritability or mood change that's not attributable to anything else, and it actually might have just been as simple as a B12 deficiency, which, as you said,
Correct.
Anna, is so easily correctable by a supplement
So
or by
easily,
foods.
yeah. And there is some good emerging data on methylfolate
Right,
too
as well,
for
right.
mood. So that really becomes like the second arm of it too. It's really fascinating, and I'm still like it boggles my mind that we learned none of this in medical school.
Well, so fortunately for you and I, we're learning it now, and actually one of the opportunities that we have now is to really propagate and really teach our own colleagues and bring this to the fore. And this podcast is a great example of that. So
and
thank
really
you for
in
that.
a very nuanced way. I don't think here we're not really endorsing any specific companies
Right.
or the overuse of supplements, and we do need to remember that some of them are useless, and the
Right.
marketing is not right, and it's all a bunch of hooey, but some are really worthwhile.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to come off of what you said about methylfolate, because this comes to me a lot in patients who are pregnant or wanting to get pregnant,
big
right?
controversy.
It's a big controversy because it's all over, like, social media. You should take methylfolate instead of the regular folate or folic acid. But the truth is that the only randomized trial looking at reduction of, like I said before, of neural tube defects is with folic acid.
Yes.
It's not been studied with methylfolate. And yes, methylfolate may be better absorbable. Some patients who have a specific gene mutation in what's called MTHFR. I mean, I call it Monday through Friday MTHFR because like every week somebody's diagnosed with it, right? But it still has not been really shown. I mean, it's plausible that it might be better, but it has not been shown, and this is why most prenatals have folate or folic acid. Some now are putting that methylfolate, but I'm a little worried that that's done without really scientific data behind it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a big push towards this MTHFR awareness and methylfolate without hard data about outcomes from it,
So, yeah, and that's a good point also for some other botanicals and supplements. For example, now you hear a lot about creatine and collagen. Those are big ones too.
Yeah, tell us the stack. What do I need to do?
Well, so it depends, right? So I think that nothing works in a silo. And especially if you're looking at creatine, which is a protein derivative, and it's going to break down into amino acids, and you're going to be using it to help build up your muscle. The reason we keep harping on building up your muscle is because the musculoskeletal system is linked. It goes back to fracture and reducing fracture risk. Because if you build up your muscles, you're going to build up your bones, and then you will live with a lot less frailty without risk of falling. And as we get older, that's a big deal. Because women that have a fracture in their 50s, 60s, 70s, the stats are really, really worrisome. 1 out of 2 women that have a serious hip fracture will not retain full functionality.
I was just reading it was in the New York Times, I think yesterday, in the Science Times, and they were talking about the importance of building up your glutes,
Yes.
Can I say butt on the spot? So not only to have a nice looking butt, but it actually it's the biggest muscle in the body, right?
In the whole body.
And it's most important for stability and preventing fractures.
And standing up.
Yeah.
It keeps you upright.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so
what its function
when we're
is.
sitting down all day long, like we're losing our glutes, so we have to do taking creatine and doing things like squats and stuff like that.
I have to say, having worked with so many women across the lifespan, but also now seeing my family members, especially that higher, older generation, really become much older, and the frailty that comes with that robs you of your function. And when you're robbed of your function, you're robbed of your joy of life.
And
if you
purpose,
cannot
right? And your purpose, all
get
of it, right?
out of the chair, if you cannot walk across the street, that means you cannot go have dinner with your family out. You can't go to your barbecue. It's really important. So this is such an aside. We should do another episode on this.
Right, on that.
One of the best exercises, get down, get up.
Get that. From your
get
seat.
Down, get
That's
up.
right. That's right.
Get down, get up. Or get down on the floor, get up.
Right.
Yeah.
That is one of the best ones.
So
With low tech, right? Low
creatine,
tech,
that sounds like that's in the stack. You mentioned
creatine's important.
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D,
Yeah.
Magnesium, right?
B12 if you need it.
B12. And we didn't talk very much about, I think, free fatty acids or omega-3 fatty acids, which I think
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. So the reason they're important is because with the SAD, which is the standard American diet, we have so many ultra-processed foods and processed foods that we're eating, and we're not eating the whole foods, the organic foods. And one of the shifts that we should be looking at is shifting towards the anti-inflammatory diet, which I think deserves its own
We'll do that
podcast.
in another episode, yes.
But part of the anti-inflammatory diet is that you're going to get in the omega-3 and the omega-6 fatty acids. The proportion is important, right? We eat about 10 times more omega-6 fatty acids versus omega-3s, which are quite inflammatory, the omega-6s. Bringing up the omega-3s will mitigate that. It will reduce that. It will really bring an anti-inflammatory component to your diet. How do you get them? Well, you get them from
Italian.
How do you get them from salmon, fatty fish? You eat Italian, Greek, also that whole Mediterranean area, sardines, mackerel. Actually, albacore also has a fair amount of omega-3 fatty acids. And a nice plant source is actually unroasted walnuts.
Oh,
How do you like that?
Why unroasted?
Because when you roast them, if you roast them or cook them, you denature the lipid composition, and so they don't work as well. And so you don't just get the same bang for the buck. So that's an important. This would be an important supplement that I would add to the toolbox.
Got it.
One little minor point is these are fatty acids, they're lipids, they can become rancid. So if you expose them to bright light, if you don't keep them in sort of a covered area, a cool, dry area, they can denature and they won't work as well. Just a minor point, but I think an important one.
With that point in mind, right, because I always say to patients also, if you're going to buy omega-3s, make sure they're in a bottle that's not translucent or clear, or preferably dark, so their shelf life is better.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
They shouldn't smell like very fishy either, so that's a problem. If they smell when you open the bottle, if they're really fishy, not good.
Yeah.
I mean, I get questions about like DHA supplements all the time in pregnancy.
Sure.
And, data is a little bit iffy about it, right? People think about it's going to make their kid go to Princeton or Harvard or something like that, right? But the data on like the IQ and cognitive development is really not great. There's no real hard science saying that improves that. I mean, I think there was one study that showed preconceptionally might help for fertility. Can it hurt? No, probably not. But I do encourage people to eat fish that are high in omega-3s, as you mentioned. We have to avoid the high mercury fish, kingfish, swordfish, mackerel, tuna in larger quantities. And getting it through fish, I think, is better. I think we need 2 to 3 portions a week. Yeah. But it also can help reduce preterm birth risk as well.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think it goes to, Francesco, your point, like nothing exists in a silo, right? And humans love simple solutions to complex problems. And, taking an omega-3 supplement is not going to guarantee anybody going to whatever school or this or that. But I do think if, getting it from food, wonderful. If you need to get it a different way, fine. But let's be careful about making these long-term statements or promises or guarantees unless that is something that's based on evidence. And I don't think we have that here.
Right. And I think that's a good point about when we make a recommendation about a supplement or a vitamin, it's never in a vacuum. It's always contextual. For example, back to the creatine. You're going to take creatine to increase your muscle mass. Well, you really can't do it unless you're exercising and unless you're doing specific types of exercise.
The powder alone is not going to make you grow muscle.
It's not, but unless you're engaging in some serious resistance exercise. And I think that also deserves this whole other conversation.
That's a whole other thing.
We definitely should have something on exercise.
Yes,
Definitely.
And we're going to have an episode on all the, let's say, the powders that every midlife woman has on the counter. The collagen peptides, the protein powder, and creatine. Right. So let's talk about how we can navigate that, that supplement aisle. How does somebody even choose a supplement? If I wanted to buy, magnesium glycinate, how do I know that what I'm buying is right? Because there is that regulatory or lack of regulatory aspect. There's differences in quality. How do I, as a consumer, know what to look for?
That's a great question, and it's completely daunting and overwhelming and confusing. So there's a couple of little things that you can do. You should look for the USP label, which is the U.S. Pharmacopoeia mark. That means that it's been vetted sort of for its potency, that it really is the substance that they're saying it is, and typically it's also vetted for the amount of milligrams or grams that it is. Now, it's not going to say that it works or it doesn't work, but at least that's a good starting point. And they also tend to vet the sourcing. So the sourcing really is contaminant-free. Another company that I use, and again, have no financial ties to it, but
none of us do,
Right, but it's Consumer Labs.
Yeah.
So Consumer Labs takes bottles of supplements and vitamins off the shelf, and they test them. They test them again for potency, dosing, and contamination. And they will give like their best picks or recommended, and they'll also tell you which ones fail the test. And I found it actually very helpful, and I do use it with my patients actually.
Yeah.
So those are two big things I think that people can start doing.
I think that's really great advice. So looking for that NSF seal,
Right.
USP. NSF is another organization that gives them third-party testing if that information is available, and then Consumer Lab is, I think it's a great resource.
And if you really want to do the effort, you can get a certificate of analysis if you want to call the company and find out from them what their analysis is on their batches. So that takes a little bit more work, but it might be worthwhile.
Yeah. The other thing, that sometimes I use also, just look on the back and look at the ingredient list. Look at the front. The front is promising magic. It's probably too good to be true.
Right.
If the back just lists, proprietary blend and you don't know what's in it, okay, that's a red flag, honestly, no? Like I would be wary of buying something where I don't really know what's in
proprietary
that.
blends are tricky because you don't know if they're really meeting the levels of where you're going to have clinical effectiveness, which is another thing.
That's also maybe for another episode, but often, and we didn't even get into phytoestrogens or blends, and, I do a lot in the perimenopause, menopause world, and all the time I see supplements come through that seem to have the right botanicals, but they put like 25 of them in a bottle at levels that have never been even studied or shown to be effective, just to make someone believe that, I'm taking it's going to be helpful.
Right.
So I think, looking at the right ingredient at the right level that has been tested for efficacy, it's important. And it's a confusing world out there, even our societies, and I think we need to come clean about that. The Menopause Society does not recommend any supplements for menopause symptoms. Do you think it's important to talk about it? Because while hormone therapy is the most effective way to manage those symptoms, lots and lots of women, I think the statistic is maybe 55 or 60% do use supplements,
right?
Especially women that who feel they cannot use hormone therapy. So we'll do maybe another thing. So
we would have to dive into things like isoflavonoids and soy products. I mean, that really deserves its own thing. But just sort of as a teaser, there are things out there that can help with some of the vasomotor symptoms. It's not a panacea, and they're not quite like estrogen. They don't give you all the benefits that estrogen does. But in terms of some of the symptom relief, looking at some soy products, soy foods, even more so than soy supplements.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is a whole area to discuss and dig into.
There we also get into, women who may be at high risk of breast cancer or those with breast cancer, because we want to also be careful about what could have hormonal effects versus not, and all of that. Joanne, I think we got to get Frank back on the show.
I know.
It's been great.
Sure.
Thank you.
We spent a weekend at a meeting, and he was like studying the whole time and like reading to me all about the supplements and mushrooms and all the stuff.
Oh, medicinal mushrooms.
Right.
My goodness.
Okay,
We have a whole
that's
show on that.
Okay,
That's
so
a
that
whole
is
thing.
my current passion. So for this episode, do you know that mushrooms are pretty much the only food that can synthesize vitamin D? So if you have fresh picked mushrooms and you put them out in the sun, they will make vitamin D that you can then absorb. I never knew that.
Right. That's
So-
And I learned from you that you have to cook the mushrooms.
You must cook them
Yes.
to have them.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
For their adaptogenic or immunologic effect.
And
yes.
hen of the woods are the best.
Hen of the woods. Yeah, there's lots of them. Lion's mane, reishi.
Lion's mane is
shiitake,
delicious.
maitake.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Italian oysters to come
Let's
through
do
on my
it.
logs.
We'll make a nice risotto with that,
Yes,
actually.
I love
A
that.
nice homemade risotto.
So, for the end, let's do a quick round of sort of our supplement verdict part,
Sure.
okay? So let's do maybe yay, meh, or nay type of thing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah?
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
yeah.
I'm sure.
What's the saying in Italian?
Mezza mezza,
There we
mezza
go,
mezza,
there we go.
half and
Let's
half.
go with that for today.
Okay.
All right, vitamin D,
Yay.
okay. Magnesium,
Yay.
all right.
That's a big yay.
Iron supplements.
I think that depends. I think that that's a meds, depending on what you're doing. I think discuss it with your doctor and get the levels.
If you aren't deficient, though.
Well, I was going to say, get your levels checked, and if you aren't deficient, it's a big yay. But
it's important in pregnancy, especially.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Melatonin.
That's a little bit of a tricky
Opening
one.
up
I don't know. That's a meds bordering on no, and I'll tell you why. The problem with melatonin, the stuff that's in the market, is way overdosing what you really need. They're giving you 5 to 10 to 20 milligrams in the dosing, and what you really need for sleep aid is a fraction of that, 0.3 to 0.5, a tiny amount.
Those high doses are way more than what our bodies
And they're pharmacologic
produce.
doses.
Yeah.
They have a lot of effects outside of the sleep hygiene. And so it's a meds to a no.
All right. Black cohosh.
Yeah, so black cohosh is great. There's a lot of good data on black cohosh. It works for a lot of women, not all women. I think for vasomotor symptoms, for me, it's a yay. I would say it's a big yay for them.
There's some newer data on it.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Like, it's interesting. All right. I think I know what you're going to say.
Try me.
Menopause, detox, tea, and belly blends.
Mamma mia. This goes back to proprietary business, and if you can't decipher what the heck is in it, it's a strong no. No way.
Well, I think we've done it.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been tremendous. Thank you so much. Yeah.
It was so fun.
Educational. I hope that the audience really listens and learns a lot.
My mind is on mushroom risotto right about now.
Let's do it.
But
and I'm thinking pesto with walnut, not toasting my walnuts when I put in pesto.
Right.
I don't toast them either.
Don't,
pesto.
yeah. You can make the nice pesto with the walnuts, a little garlic, some parsley, and good extra virgin olive oil. We didn't even get into that. Olive oil. Yeah. A wonderful monounsaturated fatty acid. An amazing product.
Any parting words of wisdom for the end?
Yeah, what I'll say is
could be a recipe.
It could be a recipe, and I'm happy to provide that. An anti-inflammatory risotto recipe. I would say that for patients looking at supplements and botanicals, go in with curiosity, but go in with an open mind and a little bit of skepticism, so much that you are discussing it with your doctor. Go and do a little bit of the research that we discussed, find out exactly what the data shows, and let yourself be led by the data and by the evidence. I think that's probably the most prudent way to go and the most realistic way to go.
Love that. Agree.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of HERology. I'm your host, Anna Barbieri. For more groundbreaking conversations on women's health, subscribe to Mount Sinai Health System's HERology podcasts on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To get in touch with the show or suggest an idea for a future episode, email us at podcasts@mountsinai.org. HERology is a production of the Mount Sinai Health System and the Carolyn Rowan Center for Women's Health and Wellness. To learn more about the Rowan Center and our state-of-the-art facilities helping shape the future of women's health, scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description below.